It's time to set your lineups with CBS Sports' Dave Richard.
Oh, yeah. Dave Richard, CBS Sports, joining us each and every week at 7:27 to help you your fantasy football. 1-800-920-1140 if you want to ask a question. Also, a lot of people like to text 916-339-1140. I know there's going to be a lot of what do I do about Amon-Ra St. Brown?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what am I going to do with Amon-Ra St. Brown? We're efforting Dave Richard right now. He is out there in Florida. Jason, how are your fantasy teams doing?
I am not doing very well. Generally, I feel like I do well in a lot of my leagues. Don't always win them, but one of the things that, to me, is you just have to keep playing. That you will run into someone that forgets their lineups. The bye week, they have some. I'm like, you're starting. The guy's sitting out. So, like, if you just commit and you keep playing, you should finish in the top half. Like, if you just keep going. So, I'm right now talking myself into that because I'm losing at a far too high rate, but I'm going to keep going.
Did you just pick badly? Injuries?
A little bit of that. And then there's one of the bigger one I've been in. Like, we've been the victim of we've played the best team every week. But that one, what I like is there's a head-to-head, but there's also total points, which I prefer because I feel like it's irrelevant if you beat me every week. You know?
I agree. There's nothing.
It's not my defense against you.
There's nothing like having the second most points in your league and losing.
Right.
And there should be a name for that, like a Goocher, like in Stand By Me. Like there should be something. Joining us right now from CBS Sports, the one, the only, the lovely, the talented Dave Richard. Good morning, Dave.
It's called being unlucky.
Yes.
Maybe unlucky as heck.
As
but
heck.
I don't really mean heck.
Wow, you went on the edge.
I just always felt like this.
I don't want to get you in trouble.
Well,
that happened to me last week. Dave, it happened to me last week in a league where I was 0-3, put together the best lineup I could, ran into the team that scored the most points. Now I'm 0-4.
Brutal.
Let me ask you this.
There's only one team. I swear to God, I'm only 0-4 in one of my 17 leagues.
Would you rather be 1-3, but you've got depth, you love your team, you've had a couple of close calls, or like in my case, Dave, I'm 3-1 and 4-0, right? I'm having a really good start to the year. However, I have no depth. Buys are going to hit me. I have zero depth. I've won 2 of my games by a combined 7 points. Like, I know, or at least I have a great idea I'm screwed. Do you take the winning record and try to work it, or do you take the losing record knowing that you've got a pretty good bench?
As long as you're willing to work it, you take the winning record. But there are a lot of fantasy managers that look at the record and they go, oh, I'm good. But they're not thinking about, they've got 3 players on bye in week 8, and they don't prepare. They don't work the waiver wire. They don't try and talk trade. Now, I've got a couple of teams that are 3-1 and they're stacked.
Sure.
So I feel I'm not even making waiver moves. They're so good. But I've got some teams like you've got, Dave, where I've lucked into a couple of wins. That happens. It's fantasy football. But you have to keep grinding away to make your team as good as it can. And I will tell you this, as annoying of a year as it's been for fantasy managers, there is still some incredible depth that can be found off the waiver wire. Take Alec Pierce, for example. He was awesome last night. He was good the week before. No one really wanted to buy in because it's Matt Ryan and it's the Colts, but I think you have to. He's going to be one of the hotter waiver wire names when you pick up waiver guys next week.
One question for you, then we move on, because I love asking you philosophy questions. And
you're the only one who does, and I really look forward to our talks.
I don't know that we've.
I mean it. I really mean that.
I appreciate that, and because you also are willing to go there too. And I've often struggled with this, Dave. If you have, if you're trying to make a decision on drafting a player or perhaps acquiring a player via a trade or free agency, do you prefer spreading your bye weeks out? Or do you ever say, you know what, I'm just going to take it in the shorts in week 9. I've got 6 guys on bye. I'm just going to deal with it. I'm going to get it out of the way, but I'm going to make up for it in the other weeks. Have you ever wavered between the two?
No. Although I will tell you that there have been times where I've drafted and I will use bye weeks as a tiebreaker. Let's say I drafted a stud running back and he's got a bye in week 9. And I'm up in round 4. There's 2 running backs I like. One of them has a bye in week 9, the other one's in week 8, I will probably defer to the week 8 guy if they are truly neck and neck in terms of how I feel about them. So I avoid the headache of week 9. But let's say same situation. There's a running back in week 8. There's a running back in week 9 with their buys. And I like the week 9 bye guy better, like significantly better, or even just a little bit better. I'm taking that guy because I've got 2 months to figure out how I'm going to maneuver around that bye week. I could always trade one of these players, but I've got 8 great weeks with these guys and I want to use them. I want the best players that I can acquire on my team. So I'm never willing to go into a draft and say, okay, I'm only going to pick players in week 9. There's 6 teams on bye in week 9 and I'll just lose in week 9. I want to win every week. But I definitely have some teams where guys are loaded. I've got some bye week problems coming. Everybody will, but I'm going to try and fight through it and put together a lineup that I can use, whether it's with trades or those waiver wire ads that I've been talking about, so that I can win that week.
Dave, I want to ask you about a couple of players involved in last night's game. First, Jonathan Taylor doesn't.
Do you have to?
He doesn't play, but it's not even that. Everybody would have drafted him, if not number 1, very high in their drafts. Has not been very good. The offense hasn't looked very good, and I know he was out last night. So one part would be, what if you owned him on your roster, what do you do with Taylor going forward? And then if you did draft Russell Wilson, I mean, he has been bad for 5 weeks. What do you do with those 2 guys?
You're hanging on to Taylor because if you trade him now, it's his lowest value that you could possibly have because he's hurt and we don't know when exactly he'll come back. The fact that it hasn't come out that he has a high ankle sprain leads me to believe that he did not suffer a high ankle sprain and that the Colts were just caught in a bad situation where he was hurt going into a short week. They just wanted to do right by him. They know that their offense is nothing without him, and the proof of that was last week. But I did think the offensive line got their act together in the second half last night. So maybe a little bit of optimism that they'll start being able to open up some lanes for Taylor. And I still think he's the most gifted running back in the National Football League. Hang on to him. If I've got Russell Wilson as my starting quarterback, I'm making a beeline to the waiver wire to pick up Geno Smith. And next week I'm going to pull a Pete Carroll, and I'm starting Geno Smith over Russell Wilson. Smith has played great. He's got great receivers. He's doing what Russ used to do in Seattle, and he's got a matchup against Arizona. It's one of the easier matchups that you could ask for in week 6. So while Russ has the Chargers in week 6, I'm going to let him take a break. I want to see something from Russ before I put him in my lineup again. I will go week to week with my quarterbacks, do the old waiver wire roulette game, and Geno's going to be the first guy up for me after this week.
You know, it's funny because both Geno Smith and Jared Goff, top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy this year, which is fantastic. Who's more sustainable?
It's Smith, because I think the Lions can run the ball. There's probably going to be some games coming up where they're not – well, I say they're not going to have to throw the ball, but that would mean that their defense plays better, and I just don't know if their pass rush could get better. I don't know if every other element of their defense can get better, but pass rush is half the game in the NFL. So if they can get that going, then there will be some empty games for Goff. I think this week's going to be tough for Goff. The Patriots in the past, when they played against Jared Goff, they blitzed the snot out of him. I don't know if they can do that this week, Dave. I think they're going to have to play a lot more zone and kind of just trust that Jared Goff will make some mistakes throwing the ball, and he's not going to have his best receivers available, or at least his best one. Amon-Ra St. Brown, it doesn't look like he's going to play. So I don't love Goff. I think he's a sleeper, but I'd rather start Geno Smith this week because, honestly, he's looked great. The Seahawks are using him very, very well. Their offensive line's playing well. It's a trickier matchup this week against New Orleans, but I think he can be okay.
Was Josh Jacobs' performance last week for the Raiders kind of a isolated outlier there, or do you think there's more to come from him?
I'm a little worried about those catches. It's been 2 weeks in a row that his catch numbers have been great, but they've come without Hunter Renfrow on the field, and now Renfrow is coming back this week. So I'm real curious to see whether or not he gets those 4 or 5 catches again this week, or if those targets go a little further downfield to Renfrow. And I'll tell you what, I'm still starting him. The numbers have been good the last couple of weeks. Last week was really amazing for him against the Broncos. We'll see what he does this week. The Chiefs' run defense has been pretty good, though. I'm starting him, and I'm hoping that he can get those at least 4 catches. But I also might take this opportunity between now and the game, before 1 o'clock Sunday, to trade him and see if you can get something good. Maybe you upgrade. You take him and a receiver on your bench, and you try and turn it into Fournette Or maybe even Jonathan Taylor. Maybe it's a really good receiver on your bench and you get Jonathan Taylor on your team.
Dave, real quick, a couple of text questions for you. What do I do at tight end if I have Mike Gesicki and Kyle Pitts? Who do I start?
I don't think Pitts is going to play. We'll see if he practices on Friday. If he plays, you'll use Pitts. You should drop Gesicki. Go to your waiver wire. You can see if Gerald Everett's out there with the Chargers. He's beat up too, but I like his matchup if he plays against Cleveland. Otherwise, you're looking to stream Taysom Hill. Like his matchup against Seattle, if you can use him at tight end. Tyler Conklin, Logan Thomas, Hayden Hurst. These are the names you're looking for. They're touchdown or bust tight ends who you'll put in a pinch if Pitts doesn't play.
And out of time, but I got to get this in here. If St. Brown doesn't play, Juju, Olave, James Conner, who do you go at flex?
Olave is the one.
Yeah.
He's been great.
Yep. Dave, where can we see here? Touch, feel, whatever.
Ooh, feel. That's a little.
Feel your fantasy,
much,
your fantasy knowledge in our hearts.
You know, you can come to Florida anytime. An hour and 20 minutes from now, I'm on Fantasy Football Today live on CBS Sports HQ. We're previewing every game, rapid fire style. We're answering questions. Go look us up at cbssportshq.com or on the free CBS Sports app.
You're the best.